And we are broadcasting from the heartland of America, the Chicago region. It is Thursday. We're going toward a new moon on Sunday. Uh, Beautiful autumnal kind of vibe in the air. So, how are you, Barrett, as we're moving forward?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. I like that idea that the new moon is coming soon, and I've been feeling a lot lately that there's kind of new beginnings that are afoot. They're sort of underway, and um, I think a lot of times when we have these opportunities, they sort of serve as touch points for us to say, what is it in my life that I'm ready to set down, and what now am I going to pick up? So I like that, and it really fits with the idea of fall as the leaves begin to fall off the trees, and in anticipation of something new.
Yes, absolutely. And, one of the things that makes autumn so enjoyable is getting out with kids. They love to pull together a big pile of leaves and frolic in them and carve pumpkins. And so it's a time of year when you can really spend time with the little people that you're connected to in your life and get those rewards of watching that innocence exploring this bizarre world that we have created here in the material universe.
Yeah, that was definitely an all-time favorite of mine, jumping in the piles of leaves.
Yeah, I think that that's kind of one of those strong images that we collectively share of our childhood. Unless you grew up in a completely glass and steel urban environment where you were not given opportunity to do that sort of thing. But you know, now that you're older and in control of your destiny, maybe you can go out with the neighbor's kids or your kids, or I don't know, grab a kid on the street corner and head for a forest preserve and see what the leaves are doing.
Yeah, well, at the risk of tripping off an Amber Alert, that sounds kind of fun.
Yes. Well, I'm not advocating stealing other people's children, but you can get out there and solicit, I guess you could say. Invite the parents along with you if you're really desperate for that contact with youth.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm with you. I think that a lot of times as we get into adulthood, there's sometimes this strong sense of seriousness that falls over us, and this idea of stepping back into our own inner child is a really big key to every spiritual path. How can we be playful and fun? How can we be lighthearted and kind of let some of the cares of the world fall away, even if it's just for a bit, so we can step back into that light that we really are, and that never really left us, but somehow we maybe have stepped a little bit away from it. So yeah, I like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that you will observe with children, especially the real little ones, 3 and 4 and 5, is that they tend to just level the field. They see um, everything as being on the same plateau, so that it's no more of a challenge to tie your shoelaces than it is to capture a chunk of the moon and stick it under your bed. And that kind of that idea aligns itself with our theme today, and that is the order of difficulties in the whole process of sharing a miracle with others.
Yeah, this is a really big theme throughout the Course in Miracles. It comes up right away in the 50 Miracle Principles, and today we're exploring it in uh, Manual for Teachers, Section 8, How Can Perception of Order of Difficulties Be Avoided? And why don't I just kind of read the beginning of it, because it's very evocative. The belief in order of difficulties is the basis for the world's perception. It rests on differences, on uneven background and shifting foreground, on unequal heights and diverse sizes, on varying degrees of darkness and light, and thousands of contrasts in which each thing seen competes with every other in order to be recognized. A larger object overshadows a smaller one. A brighter thing draws the attention from another with less intensity of appeal. And a more threatening idea, or one conceived of as more desirable by the world's standards, completely upsets the mental balance. What the body's eyes behold is only conflict. Look not to them for peace and understanding. So there's so many great teachings in there, so many great ways that the world that we see is always shifting and changing, and we often look to it for solidity. We often look to it for stability. And he's saying here that we're not going to find stability in what is unstable, and that we ultimately need to look to a deeper place, a place within, to find that place of peace and joy. And I think we're starting to get the message, at least sometimes.
Well, I have I have a lot of people I deal with who are confronting all these different things in their lives. I don't have any money, I don't have a lover, I don't have this, I don't have that. And that idea of an order of difficulties. Gee, it's so much harder to get money than it is to get friends, that sort of thing. It really becomes a very brilliantly conceived distraction. Because that's really what the ego is concerned with, is that sleight of hand. Don't look over here, don't look behind the curtain, because you'll discover that it's all being manipulated by this one theme or this one idea. And within that whole concept of oneness, there is only one answer for every problem that you have, and that is your restoration of your allegiance to and your sense of security in your connection to the divine. So you don't have to worry about money or anything else in reality if you follow through and do the one simple thing that Jesus talked about even 2,000 years ago in the New Testament, when he said, "Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven," or the presence of God is how I would place that, "and all these things shall be added unto you." So as you are connected to the divine, opportunity starts to open up and flow into your life. And you suddenly discover you arrive at a plateau where your needs are taken care of before you recognize what the problem is.
Beautiful. And I like how what you're saying about all these complex problems that we have always come back down to a very simple answer. That at the core of every issue we've ever had is the thought that somehow we're not tapped into God, that we're not already whole with love. And that is the false idea that begets every other false idea. In the Bible, there are these sections about, Jebediah begat Isaiah, and he begat, and he begat and begat and begat. There's a lot of begatting going on. And in a sense, we can do the same thing when we look at all of our problems here in the world and come to see that the first begatter is this thought of separation, that is what the Course calls the ego, that ultimately that is the basis of all of our issues. And the good news is that there's no reality to it. When we go down to the deepest level of all the issues, all the layers that we're going down underneath, the bottom one is empty. The bottom one, there's nothing there. So we're so afraid that we're going to find some truly damning evidence that we're going to be judged eternally guilty or sinful. And as the Course says, that the last judgment is that my holy Son of God is innocent. That you are my son, that there is nothing to fear. So we kind of look through all these veils and we come to see that there really didn't have the solidness that they seem to. And then the light just starts to shine. And that's really our goal, is to get in touch with that light that we really are, and to let it shine into our life, and have fun with it.
Exactly. And, I think this loops back into that idea of forgiveness as being the bridge that we traverse in this journey back to the realization that ultimately none of this is real, and that it all is a figment of our imagination. and we are not in exile. We never took a step away from God, but we did manage to create a very convoluted dream. And very much like Alice in Wonderland, we're dealing with the Mad Hatter and all sorts of very colorful characters on a day-to-day basis. And we really have to be alert to the fact that there is only one illusion, and that illusion has only one solution, and that is to awaken.
Yeah, yeah. I think it kind of fits also to go in these storytale kind of ideas that we look at Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, and ultimately her whole journey was to awaken. And it becomes clear at the end of her journey that she had the power to awaken anytime during that journey that she wanted. And the same is true for us, is that we're not really gonna be aware of it until the end, but we have that ability in each moment. And the Course is very clear that the only power we have here within the dream of this world is the power to choose. And that power to choose means that we can choose the fear of the ego, the idea that we're alone, that we're helpless, that we are incapable of happiness, or we can choose the unending love of heaven. And by holding on to the Holy Spirit's hand, we come back into that awareness that we never really were separate. We never really did fall asleep. It was just all an idea that didn't really have the truth that we thought it did.
Yes, absolutely. One of the things for me is that I get seduced in that Wizard of Oz dream, and I don't want to wake up until I get to see the flying monkeys. Without the flying monkeys, the whole dream has no real depth, at least for me. And isn't that the way we all are? We're always aware of the fact that behind the flying monkeys, there's a good chance we're going to get stabbed in the heart, but we're still willing to cling to the stupid dream and to review the monkeys all over again, which is really what this life is. It's just repetition. We do the same stupid thing over and over again and get burned by the same fire that we stick our hand into. And really, that seems to be the whole human condition, is that, the relief is there. And on some deep, deep level, all of us know what the avenue is that we have to take to get out of this mess. Mm-hmm. But we're so trapped in that expectation of seeing the monkeys come flying into, the castle, and so we're just we're mesmerized by what we've created.
Yeah. Well, I think that kind of fits. The Bad Witch. She was mesmerized by her ability to create that too. She was entranced by her own power. She thought she had this whole big castle. She had these flying monkeys. Hey, she had it all. She could fly around on a broom. Like, all right, life is good. But things weren't really so good. She was in a lot of pain, and the world wasn't a very pretty world that she'd made up. And ultimately, she had to come to see that. And I mean, in the story, Dorothy's the one that awakens. But we could maybe put a twist on the story and say that, when her attachment to herself melted, when the water was poured on her, and she was able to let go of her identity as the body, then maybe she was free too. And that's sort of the way that we come to it. Sometimes the Holy Spirit feels like a splash of cold water to our face, and we're not always feeling like we really want that. But a lot of times it sort of snaps us out of the delusions that we've been in, and then all of a sudden we can open up into a new perspective. And I think it really fits with this idea that ultimately we have to want it. We have to want to find the peace. That's the only way it's going to come to us in our experience, because the truth is it's not separate from us. The peace is not some far off issue that we need to achieve. It's actually here in this moment. And we're really just letting down the walls or the barriers within us to the experience of the truth that's always been there. So what keeps us from that other than our choice to go for it? And I think a lot of us on this path are really kind of saying, okay, I want to go for it. And it means looking at the parts of us like you were just sharing that want the monkeys. You know, we want to be stabbed in the heart. It doesn't seem to make sense, but we wouldn't be experiencing it if it weren't something that we really wanted. And we start to unplug these sort of deep unconscious desires for pain and suffering. And then we actually start to feel happy. We start to feel blessed. We start to feel joyful. And we start to feel like, no, I don't think I want the monkeys anymore.
Exactly. You know, back in the 1950s, which was an era that was very dry and brittle spiritually, because America was deep asleep in this somewhat chauvinistic spiritual identity that they had. You know, our God's the best God in the world, and our God is usually in a Catholic church or in a Baptist church, or occasionally in some other church. But there was the beginning of the introduction of a higher form of spiritual awakening, spiritual thinking that was trying to infiltrate into America's consciousness. And one of my favorite writers of that era, J.D. Salinger, the guy who's famous for The Catcher in the Rye, he wrote quite a few short stories dealing with enlightenment. He was a very illuminated soul in his own right. And in his one short story, Teddy, this little quote comes along, and Teddy is talking. He says, "The trouble is," Teddy said, "most people don't want to see things the way they are. They don't even want to stop getting born and dying all the time, instead of stopping and staying with God, where it's really nice." And these themes, these thoughts, are all around us. They're peppered through our literature. They're peppered in our national consciousness. They're peppered in our global consciousness. And yet we still keep, resisting it because of the allure of some little tiny element of the dream that compels us over and over again to get back into the mud bath. And yet, when you really stop and think about it, all of the things, all of the pleasures, all of the sense of fulfillment you get from the things you achieve in materiality are fleeting. They are very ephemeral. And then, you go through the glutton cycle, eating as much as you can, and then you purge, and then you go on another search for something to replace the last cycle of gluttony with. And it does get ugly, and it certainly is beneath us. So perhaps with this new moon, we can all contemplate a higher vision of what it is that we truly want.
I like the sound of that. I think the Course is always about new beginnings. I think some people talk about how much the Course goes into the ego and talks about all the dynamics. And I think the purpose for that is because when we can see those false dynamics, when we can look at them very straight on the eye and say, no, that's not what I want anymore, then we're making that choice for the new beginning. We're stepping into sort of like a new old beginning, because we're choosing for what we've always been, and we're saying yes to what has never left. I like that one of the sections in the Course is called "The Journey Without Distance," because we don't need to go anywhere on this journey. We just need to see what's always been, and that's very heartening to me, because sometimes when I get a little stuck in the ego, when I get in my own personal mud bath, it feels like I've got a lot of work to do. And the good news is that there's no work to do. I mean, we do need to let go of our attachments to things, but it's the opposite of work. It's undoing rather than doing, and the outcome is so much happiness and joy that the payoff is worth doing all that undoing.
Yes, absolutely. And to reinforce all of the dialogue that we've had here this morning, for people who are bouncing around on Facebook or on Google Plus, if you check my feed this morning, and I think it's also posted in your page, Barrett, I had that little video clip of Eddie Izzard talking about the Church of England and what do you want, cake or death? That's what it boils down to, is that we see God as this huge piece of cake that is going to fill all of our desires. It's an easy choice then, cake or death.
Yes, yes, let's all remember to choose cake. I love that. Yeah, I got a lot of chuckles out of watching that.
Yeah, Eddie is a very funny man. Well, it has been a very pleasant discussion. We've had one viewer watching along here with us, and now, as things fall out of my ears, perhaps it is time to conclude this episode, and looking forward to the next one. My goodness, what have we got coming up here on the horizon? We've got our changes required in the life situation of teachers of God.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, I know that in my life that has definitely been true, but it does deserve some investigation and dialogue. I think it's an interesting subject.
It is. It is. There's always some more insights as we read Jesus' words, and this section, even though it's fairly short, has packs a punch. So I'm looking forward to going over that with you next week.
It's going to be great, and we're going to be adding more people to our adventures here in cyberspace. So share our broadcasts and encourage those that you know who might be interested in Course in Miracles to pick up a copy of the book and give it a spin. And we will be communicating with you in a week.
All right, look forward to it. Have a great week, Chris.
Yes, you as well, Barrett. Bye.